So let's pick up on our exploration of musical time. If we're using a transport, we can use uh, musical note values as time durations in max. And we can make some changes to this basic patch. So let's take away the number entry and let's edit our metro so that it's using a musical time value. There's a list of these in the reference. I can post these, but 4N is a quarter note. 2N would be a half note. 8N would be an eighth note, but let's just go with the quarter notes for now. There's also a way of using a dotted note and triplets, or you can specify tempo in the form of ticks or a duration in the form of ticks if you have a more complex note value that's not easily referenced by a single note duration. So we'll say metro is going to go with 4N. Then the make note will get edited and can also be 4N. So my tempo is 126. See, this isn't going to update, but this will. So let me lock this. Let's change this to 120. Start the transport, and then start the metro. And stop the metro. Now, if I adjust the tempo while the metro is playing, the value is still a quarter note, but because the tempo is changing, the duration will change. Now, the other thing that I'll show you is that no matter what the status is of the toggle on the metro, it could be on or off. If I stop the transport, the metro will stop. And if I start the transport again, so the transport doesn't automatically start the metro, but it will stop because if the transport is not running, none of the other max objects know how to interpret a musical time note duration value. So it's important those things are running together. Let me turn this off and hook up, besides playing the make note, let's send output of the bang over here. I'm going to rewind, start the transport, and start the metro. And you see the beats advancing because I didn't start them in sync. The ticks are not at 0, but they're not changing because it's happening every beat. So the bang can be sent out in musical time to report the location of the transport. It's easy enough. The final thing to do this and maybe make this work out a little bit more than you expect, the way you expect, is to start the metronome when the transport starts. And then this is going to keep the transport display in terms of measures, beats, and ticks. So it'll keep it in sync. So I'm going to rewind, and I'm going to go into metro, and I'm going to go a little bit, add a little bit more to this. And so metro with a quarter note duration, and then an attribute of active. So active looks to see if the transport is active. And if it is, If active is 1, it will turn on the metro, and I don't need the toggle now. And if I start at my 0 position, I should get output that stays in sync with the quarter note. So I'm just going to start the transport now. And you see every beat on the beat reports the beat changing. So let's rewind. And the final thing that's useful is then how am I going to change note values in the metro or in the make note. So I'm using for-in. In programming terms, this is a symbol rather than a number. It's text that needs to be evaluated as such. If I want to send text arguments or store them, I need to use messages. So I can, and I'm going to send them into the time interval argument of both. I can have messages that are like 8th note, another message for a 16th note, and another message for back to a quarter note. Oh, that's an object. Message, quarter note. I can type these all in and also connect them into the duration of make note. And so now rewind, start over. It's going to be at a quarter note still. Go to 8th notes. It's hard to keep this synced up now. Because it's a little bit off from the downbeat as it activates with these messages. So this is one way. I could switch before, but Max gives a few different ways of storing text symbols that you might want to use. So I'm going to look at 2 here. Let's move my program out message. We'll move it over here and move this over a little bit. One way I can do this is with a U menu. U menu is a graphic interface element that's a drop-down menu. So select it, and in the inspector, I can go through and edit the menu items. I can find them. It's empty, so I can start typing in things like half note, erase the empty, half note, quarter note, 8th note, 8th note triplet, 16th note, and then when I say OK, these things are now in the menu. U menu is going to send out the index, the item number in the list I choose, but also sends out the symbol. So let's, we can just see the number. The item number is not going to help us. I can use a message object and go into the write inlet And now you can see when I choose something, like 4, which is not correct, let's unlock and re-edit my menu items. It should be 4N. Okay, back in. 4N, you see the whole symbol, and that it was the second item in the list, or item 1, 0, 1. Fourth item, back to the first item, which is item 0. So I can send this here to duration of the metro and to the duration of make node. And I'll just Option Command Y and clean up that patch cord. So now start the transport. It's still moving at the quarter note, half note, 16th, 8th, and stop. So I have values stored there. The other object I can use is a tab, which gives me essentially a graphic table of choices as buttons. So instead of having to click and select, I could just go straight to it. So let's do the same. I have half note, quarter, eighth, triplet, and 16th. So let's here into the tab inspector and the tab items. One thing that you can see right away, and this is a little frustrating, the U menu wanted commas to separate the items in the menu. Tab just wants spaces. So I will go 2N, 4N with spaces, 8N, 8NT, and 16N, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make it a multiple of something, so let's add in 16NT. Then I can describe, that's just one row. So if I go back here, I can decide in the layout, if you want to get here, basic. Let's go back to all. And I have to find it. I'm sorry, I'm losing a little bit. Tabs bulletin, allow multiple lines is selected. So let's go over here and I can resize. And depending on how I resize it, it splits into multiple rows, multiple columns, how I want to go. Now it works in the same way. Its first is the item index. And the second is the symbol. And so we can use that one to also go into our metro and into our make note. Just move this up a little bit. Unlock the patch. It's a little messy with the patch cords.